Hello everyone, this is Brandon from Galaxy Doc Market. Today is August 2nd, 2025. It's Saturday and it's approximately 10:55 a.m. as I bring you this video and stock market analysis. As the picture and the title suggest, stock market top is in. I've been warning everybody about that for the last 2 to 3 weeks, that the top end of the long-term SPY trend line on the monthly chart has been breached and reached. And so basically, we'll talk about that in this video. But I want everyone to start watching the actions of the banks and the silver. It is time. And so without further ado, I want you to read this disclaimer. Pause or read it. If you agree, please move forward. And I want you to follow me at x.com/GalaxyDocMarket, where we do a lot of intraday commentaries, some comical, some really serious. But all the live commentaries occur here that basically is discussed in our group. Okay, and if you want to follow me on YouTube, please follow me there, and also subscribe, youtube.com, and like us, share us, and comment. Now let's start with this. Donald Trump put out a interesting comedy. It's a comedy. It's a comical theater between Donald Trump and Powell, and this is kind of the old adage that look here, don't look over there type of thing, and it is basically designed to shed light onto this false sense of omniscience of Federal Reserve Bank, that they are the stewards of American economy and monetary policy. And what he's really pointing out is really the Fed cannot do anything right now, right? They have lost all their powers, and they can't hike or cut rates anymore because there's so much money that's printed, sloshing around in the system, that it is impossible for Fed to do anything other than jawbone and spar with Trump. And basically, he is right. The American people needs to be seen, told what Federal Reserve Bank is, and I think that's what Trump is doing. Federal Reserve Bank has nothing to do with the American government. It is again, a lot of people may disagree with me, but it's the truth, and that Federal Reserve Bank answers to no one in the government, including Donald Trump. And I think Powell said that on his presser, that he does not work for Donald Trump. So the issue is it's a for-profit private bank somehow usurped the power to control money supply and set interest rates. But the problem is that no one exactly knows what's going on. And Trump, a few weeks ago, put out a light onto their spending on our taxpayer dollars, which is now on their Federal Reserve Bank renovations, which is now at $3.6 billion. That made Powell look really old and small next to Trump. And it was just really sad to see. And I think he is trying to wake people up. Okay. And so the issue is this is where the premise is that a lot of people like to say that this is why the market started tanking, because Fed failed to cut interest rates. And the truth is, even if that were true, that Fed has that power, even if he cut rates, it would have basically tanked the market, right? They can't do anything. Whatever they do, all they can do is basically trying to save the 10-year treasury. That's the bond that they are creating debt out of. And even then, really, in order to do that, they have to sacrifice the market. And I've always said, you have to sacrifice the stock market. The Fed will sacrifice the stock market to save the bond market. But why do they even have power to do that? That's the thing I think Donald Trump is trying to point light on. Now, this is only the beginning, and I found this on X, and I'm sorry, I took a snippet of it. So I think this is absolutely true. Powell is not even an economist, right? He's an attorney at the head of the Federal Reserve Bank, in the same way as Tedros on the World Health Organization is not a real doctor. He's like has a PhD in some social mumbo jumbo. But this is only the beginning, because the fact is that when the two worlds collide and there is a major discrepancy in debt creation, and that full faith and confidence in the US dollar and in the US debt is gone. So in order for Fed to cling on to power, they need to make sure that they can control and stabilize the 10-year yield, because with that 10-year yield rising and staying above 38.6, it is continually going to put pressure on the banks, because remember my previous video, I talked about the banks being insolvent, and which we're going to talk about, and that is absolutely true. So what is Powell going to do? He's going to try to tank the market. If you think that the market is stock market or otherwise, anything that we have is free markets and market forces driving prices based on supply and demand, you're absolutely out of your gourd. Okay, it is a managed market, and it gives you the facade of free markets. Okay, but this is Powell, and I think this sums it up. I think this is exactly what he wants. But the stock market is frothy. It has no business being up here, other than the fact that there's so much money sloshing around that are being printed. Forget about the U.S. debt. There's so much money that's printed, it's creating dislocations, and when things break, it's going to break in a spectacular fashion. And that's why I always say a new monetary system is coming that's going to be digital and backed by gold and silver, right? Bitcoin was a Trojan horse to introduce the concept of digital currency for the governments to bring in a new money regime away from the fiat fractional reserve banking system. That's the way I read it, and that's the way I stand. And so, again, on that note, I'm talking about the U.S. dollar declining simultaneously with the 10-year yield. And you can clearly see what this is all about, right? The U.S. dollar declining is the loss of faith and confidence, and basically when that's dumping, and the 10-year yield, they're trying very, very hard to get this thing to 38.6, and I'm going to put it right here. 38.6 is where banks stabilize, and I think that's really Federal Reserve is trying to do that. The problem is really because of all the money that's been printed, it's really not going to work. All it's going to do is start letting out all the froth excess out of all the systems, including the stock market, and I've been warning about that for a while. So the decline of US dollar obviously is going to start feeding the gold and silver markets. And gold and silver markets are rigged by LBMA and COMEX by slamming millions upon millions. I mean, God knows how much they've actually paper shorted the gold and silver market. But, that's naked shorting. And what's happening is there is an increasing delivery demand for gold and silver that's coming, and it puts pressure on the U.S. dollar and on the U.S. Treasury. I believe this 10-year yield will find some support, maybe move down a little higher, but still always be caught in this range right here. Okay, so Fed will sacrifice the stock market. I've always said this to save the 10-year bond. That's the take-home message here. The problem is it cannot come at the cost of the U.S. dollar. In order for the U.S. economy to remain stable, the dollar has to remain strong, but the full faith and confidence of U.S. dollar as a reserve currency is gone. I think that ended when the Saudis declined to participate in the U.S. petrodollar agreement that Kissinger signed in to effect in the 60s. All right, so here's the Silver Slam Crew has been successful. We hit 39.91. I've always said that this 40 was a psychological level. We pulled back. We are now forming a double bottom. This dotted line is really the significant level, and I think we regained it on Friday. And so we'll see where this goes. But all you have to do is look at the gold. And gold, basically, they try to slam that down. We are now above this downtrend line, and it looks pretty bullish because people are wise to the fact that this silver slam crew action of naked shorting the silver market and gold market, for that matter, is in serious trouble because of the delivery demand. They just cannot possibly be shorting. I believe at this point they've shorted almost 3 times the above ground gold and silver that's produced. There's a gnashing of the teeth moment coming. Okay, for those of you that did not participate or start accumulating gold and silver precious metals, or even participating in the futures market, there is a massive short squeeze headed our way. Okay, take advantage of these, folks. All right, so the big banks are in serious trouble because this is who the Silver Slam Crew is, including Wells Fargo, Citibank, JP Morgan Chase. JP Morgan Chase is the ringleader of them all. And I think the mechanism for Silver Slam Crew action was devised by Blythe Masters, who is doing crypto right now. But every action of blindly shorting that's with paper contracts in the market has consequences. Remember, we talked about Wells Fargo, right? Borrowing $200 billion to fund their operations to keep the lights on because they're blowing their wad on slamming the gold and silver. That is the last act of desperation, right? So anybody who remembers Wells Fargo, I did a video on that a few weeks ago. You might want to watch that one more time. And this is what the seminal thing about the previous video was all about. Borrowing money, let alone $200 billion to stay afloat operationally, is insolvency, and all banks are insolvent in that manner. Okay, now let's look at XRP. I always talk about this. People are lying. There's nobody wanting XRP at 234. Nobody wanted XRP at 18 cents. Nobody wanted XRP when it hit 50. Nobody wanted it at $1.50. Now nobody wants it at $3.50. Now it's pulled back to about $3, $3.10. Maybe I think it can pull back all the way to $2.76. Will people line up to buy it? No, they won't. What the herd of people are conditioned to do is when XRP hits 1,000, that's when the euphoria comes, and that's when the big boys will dump to you. Okay, so it pulled back from the highs of 365, and it's pulling back again. I always said that it needs to retest that 276 level at least once or twice before we can start breaking out of that $4 range. So what we got is a situation where we're at like 291 at the time that I'm making this. I think we're going to go a little bit lower. Okay, will you buy it? Here's your gift. A lot of people, when it was going to 350, thought they missed the boat. You did not miss the boat. It is highly volatile. No XRP is not being liquidated. No insiders are not selling. The banks are needing those XRPs for the payment rails, and everything else that's coming, including the financial crisis that is about to come. And XRP will be used as a reserve currency, digital reserve currency, and provider of liquidity. Okay, so I want to talk about United Healthcare, and then we'll get into more my technical analysis. So our PPO ADX crush indicator, algorithmic indicator, has been flashing sell signals all week and last week. And here's this right here on a few weeks ago, and here's one right this Wednesday. We took advantage of that. And so this is the aftermath of what happens when you basically know that United Healthcare being in trouble. That will spread into the rest of the healthcare insurance industries, because they have been corrupt. They're complicit in a lot of bad things, and they're really the problem for why American healthcare is weaponized and politicized, and basically the doctors sometimes can't be trusted in this manner because the payment system is broken. We talked about on Wednesday, we talked about a lot of things. You can pause it and read what we're talking about. And this is what happens in our membership group. And I said 8.8 United Healthcare 245 puts. Okay, so within a few days, and we knew this was going to happen. I'll talk about the technical analysis. On Thursday, we're getting out. I'm urging people, hey, start taking half of it off at 600%. Okay, and then of course, take a little more off. We were up 13x on the whole trade. Okay, and then of course I'm urging people to buy the dip on these silver and gold, and so that's basically what's happening, right? And so we'll start talking about our technical analysis here. I want to go over some SPY, United Healthcare, and some of the bank stocks and where we are, and hopefully this will help you. Okay, so let's bring this up, and of course now you get to see my black swan stuff. But here's silver, and not silver, but it's SPY. I've been saying last week that we've hit the upper trend line and we're going to start moving down. Why? Because these upper trend line acts as a block. Okay, so basically in the financial crisis, we hit it twice. We hit it once or twice. We're following the same mirror image of it. Is it going to happen overnight? No, but I think the trend change has happened. This is the Trump pump that I talked about. And every time that these areas come in, look at all this space between here to down here. I think this time we go lower and then establish a new trend line up down to here. You ignore these warning signs and then become super bullish. I mean, it's like the retail people were so bullish. I mean, the commentaries are just insane. Here's SPY. On the weekly, I said, hey, look, you know what? The thing is that SPY has hit that upper trend line, we're going to start selling off. And so, if you guys listen to it, and all the declining momentums here, rising volume, sell on the sell side, and then we broke above that level. It just goes on and on. I'm not, basically MACD right now, it's still early. We haven't really confirmed, but the histogram is always an early warning sign. Now we're getting divergences. We got the CCI forming major divergence, still in the kind of the bullish territory, but remember, CCI is contrarian at these levels. We have a lot of space to make up. Stochastics formed a death cross and it's now rolling over from basically a overly exuberant state. I mean, the momentum is waning. And of course, my PPO ADX, like I said, if we start forming this type of a cut pattern, and that's what it's doing, we have the MACD histogram coming down, PPO histogram, PPO and MACD are similar. Okay, so that's what's going on. I mean, we're at the top end. Everybody that's bought has bought, and now we're beginning to cross below this trend line right here. And then, of course, we're about to start getting a expansion of our the average true range. Either we're going to break below here, or we're going to go higher. Okay, so what? So we basically have that situation going on, and then we have here's the daily. I mean, daily is a little more stark, right? We knew it was topping. It's just these candle patterns were significant, and so the breakdown below the 20 SMA. This is kind of our home base. Okay, we trying to find support at the lower Bollinger Band, but I've talked about this ascending megaphone pattern last week, and of course now we have the RSI coming down. Look at these volumes. Okay, if you want to ignore this and think that the Fed's going to do something, Fed is powerless, folks. Look at all of these indicators, especially now that I've shown you what our PPO ADX does. Okay, we have these type of a cut pattern that's super bearish. Okay, we're coming off of this trend line. ATR is now expanding, as well as the accumulation distribution has broken down below this level. You take it for what it is. You ignore this. Go ahead and go buy the dips and see what happens. Okay, silver. Folks, I said silver could pull back down to here. We found support right at the 50 SMA. This is the silver on the daily basis. We just need to get over this 80 MA and it's off to the races. This $40 mark is a psychological level. So, but silver is so suppressed right now. It hasn't even hit all-time highs like gold has. And so silver is going to be an explosion waiting to happen. Okay, let's talk about Deutsche Bank. I did a video on this really quick. This is a super bearish sign, and watch that video. Here's the RSI. Look at all these gaps. Okay, these are all rescues. Okay, if you think that Deutsche Bank is solvent, then I got something to sell you. Deutsche Bank is holding also the toxic assets of Credit Suisse. It's not to be trusted. Wells Fargo is in deep shit. Okay, couldn't have happened to a better group of people. Okay, so basically this candle is an inside candle. It is very bearish, and I do not think these 20 and 50 SMA will hold. I think the realistic targets between the next 2 weeks is below this level, maybe down to the 100 and to 200 SMA. We have a death hook forming on the MACD. Take it for what you will. RSI is bearish. CCI is bearish right here. Stochastics has rolled over, so that means the momentum and the trend is shifting on the daily basis. And of course, my favorite PPO ADX indicator is now forming a more defined bullish signal. And then, of course, right here on the accumulation distribution, it's basically at the top. Everybody that's bought SPY has bought SPY. Okay, now we're expanding on the average true range of the prices. So you take it for what it is. Okay, JP Morgan Chase. Okay, now everyone is saying, oh, it found support. Great, it's found support. It's going to go and fill the gap. Maybe it will. It's coming down though, folks. Okay, all the indicators. Look at all these sell volumes. You think Jamie Dimon wasn't selling when it was going higher? Who did they sell it to? They sold to you. Okay. And then, of course, we talked about BKNG, okay? And BKNG is still a valid trade after the earnings, okay? We're going to start getting into these SMAs, and it's very possible we're going to start hitting into these 4,600 in the next few weeks, okay? And, of course, United Healthcare. For those of you that are buying the dips, do not catch a falling knife, okay? Every indicator that I have, look at RSI, is not significantly indicating that this momentum is going to go down. I think RSI is going to go way below this negative mark shortly. It blew through this magenta line. Basically, that support line needed to hold. And I believe we're going to at least test into the lows, into the 180, 190 within the next few weeks. Okay, this is not over. United Healthcare has significant issues, from fraud all the way down into bad billing practices and pay to play for the COVID vaccines. That they're the inventors of it. Okay. MACD, it has crossed over. Okay, it's just getting started, folks. This sell-off is just getting started. There is no end in sight. Look at the commodity channel index. Yes, it was bullish for a while. Yeah, but now it's turning over. It's got big problems coming ahead. So there's a lot more meat left on the bones on the United Healthcare. On the daily, it's a shit show. Okay, I mean, it literally is. And options, surprisingly, are not that expensive. So there's a lot of meat left on this bone, and you do what you will. I'm just a messenger. So a lot of you have expressed a commentary that I'm bearish for no reason. Well, this is why. Here's the thing. Silver Slam has failed. U.S. dollar falling with 10-year yield is very ominous, right? I think the trend change has taken place. XRP has pulled back. Will you buy it? Watch the banks and silver. Okay, this is a warning. There's black swans. So many black swans. I mean, Trump is sending nuclear submarines to the coast of Russia now. Okay, bankers take you to war. And unless proven otherwise, I know Trump got shot and he survived it, and there's some divine intervention. I tend to believe that might be. But look at his actions. I mean, he's still following the deep state rules. Okay, so basically, watch. Silver is going to hit $50 plus imminently. I don't think it stops at 50. I think it starts going above 70. I think it could hit in the next couple of weeks. Maybe next week we start taking out that 45 to 50 level and then start marching. I don't think silver stops until it hits about 85 to 100. Okay, banks are betting that Fed lowers the rates. Remember, I said that on that last video. Will they? Well, they didn't. They didn't get it, and so banks are in deep shit. Okay, deep trouble. XRP pulled back, cheap until $10, but will you buy it? Okay, and then of course, Fed is a farce. They don't have any more power than anyone thinks. It's like when people realize Superman can't do anything around kryptonite. The kryptonite for Fed is basically exactly the instrument that they're trying to save, which is the 10-year yield and the banks. They're crony banks. Banks are insolvent. This is why they can't do anything. And when you print money out of thin air, this is what happens. Anyways, thank you for listening. Follow me at Galaxy Market. Follow us. And also on YouTube. Like us, share us, and above all, subscribe and spread the word. And if you like my content, sometimes, my content is controversial, but they come true. Okay, and let's get some alpha. And if you want to learn to work with me, you have to email me at coachbrandon@protonmail.com. I'm working on and have a, just for average people who want to follow around my market commentary in the mornings and want to look at some of my watch list. We have that also. I don't have to do it, but it's something that, I'll put it out there. If you like my commentary and you want something more exclusive, you got to email me. Anyways, be careful out there. Don't be too bullish, okay? This is not something that even if it bounces a little bit on Monday, it does not mean that the trend that you buy in the dip, okay? Don't be a pig. Don't be a sheep, okay? Be careful. All right, bye-bye.